A harbor of diverse ocean life, and all that remains of Ilmaris that is unscorched. Once its ruler outskirts, it is now the final fragment of a once powerful kingdom. It is fortunate that the Witcher only focused on attacking the cities proper, and spent some amount of the sea from the incineration. I have long yearned to research these waters in great depth, yet was never able to due to the ongoing conflict. Although many species went extinct in the devastation, many still thrive down here in its depths. It is in this lab that I may finally study the aquatic life properly and learn of their nature. Although the marine life in these caves do have eyes, some of their eyes are weak and process few colors. All they are made to see is the light of the sea prisms that surround them, with many creatures relying on them to guide their way through the submerged caverns. Their tough, gnarled hides possess crystal growth that I had originally assumed were the prisms settling on their backs. However, dissection results reveal that they instead possess these crystals internally, and the growths are a result of internal sea prisms bursting out of their hides. The growth of these crystals reaches to such an extent that some creatures are more geological than biological in certain areas. Of the specimens here, the abnormally large clams capture my interest the most. Many times larger than the average person, their weight is so great that they lack the ability to move via the same methods as their smaller counterparts. Instead, they rely on teleportation to transport their hulking, heavily armored bodies. They seem to have once possessed further magical powers according to scouts. However, as they were only seen from afar, their reports could have easily been mistaken. Alternatively, their source of power simply could have faded after Ilmaris' downfall. It is unwise to entirely discount the latter possibility. High above even the sky islands upheaved long ago lies a fascinating geological phenomenon. Though, unlike the islands, their airborne nature appears to have formed more naturally. I speculate that they formed long ago when the world was in its infancy, judging by the soil samples I have taken while testing high-atmosphere plant growth. Perhaps these planetoids, as many refer to them as, formed via meteor strikes tossing matter high into the atmosphere. This will simultaneously explain many geological oddities I have found on the world's surface. Travel between worlds is a fascination of mine. The planets within a reasonable distance to this provide no use to me in terms of materials or study opportunities they could provide. And so, I wish to go further beyond this mere cluster of planets someday. It will likely take many more decades of technological progress, however, as travel between worlds will take years even at the maximum speed physical matter can currently go. Perhaps I will find a way to shatter this limit once this world holds my interest no longer. A request from Yehar has been delivered. An inquiry to create a suit of armor for the serpent that has joined his forces recently. The Devourer of Gods, as the serpent calls himself. He is a bothersome yet fascinating being, and so I have taken the opportunity so that I may learn more of his home dimension. Using materials from his place of origin, I have forged armor of immense size and durability yet extreme flexibility. It is certainly one of the most unique materials I have worked with and has advanced my knowledge greatly, though I have learned more than I expected to about the cosmic beast from this, perhaps more than he wished me to. It would not be a stretch to call the jungle the hub of this planet. All is centered around it, and none know not of it. It brings me no small amount of unease to see the uncomfortable, raw forms of the living beings who pass through on their journeys above. Fortunately, these labs provide everything I need in my research and more. There is little need to visit the surface, save for Yehar's summons. Few travel down here, with far fewer making the expedition to reach as far down as this research station. As such, I have taken to using this isolation to develop advanced nanotechnology for use in controlling the minds of biologicals. I yearn for it to be capable of spreading from organism to organism, a perfected blend of virus and nanotechnology. Yet, it has been an arduous task even with my newly developed technologies. Further experimentation and research are required. Continued experiments have led to significant results. With a mechanically modified queen bee as a primary host, it may act as the core of a hive mind of those my plane has touched. However, Yeharm was outraged upon learning of my experiments here and decried them as inhumane. After a brief verbal conflict, he wordlessly left and I have not heard from him since. Fortunately, I need not rely on the Slayer of Gods any longer, nor have I needed to for years. The underworld is a realm with history dating back more than a millennia when the cracks first settled, and acts as a glance into both the modern and ancient worlds simultaneously. Prior to my joining of Yeharm's forces, Azafir was the center of scientific advancements in this world. Explosives, firearms, smithing techniques, and even entire schools of magic have roots in the city. It is doubtless that the city has been largely aided by the fact that forging is trivial in the underworld, along with an abundance of food due to Silva's essence dripping down from the abyss above. Due to this, it has prospered even with the occasional attack from demons. Azafir has not existed without consequence, of course. Any society on such a large scale leaves an ecological footprint behind. This can be seen most clearly in the sea far above the city, appropriately known as the Sulphurous Sea. Redstone fumes become intense enough in the sea that they begin rising up through the abyss via a process akin to osmosis and eventually reach the sea. Reducing the pollution the city creates, particularly from forging, is a goal Yeharm wishes for me to prioritize. I see little need in it, yet it is a field of study few in this world have delved into. I refuse to squander an opportunity for scientific breakthrough. A particular being here has been the subject of my interest. A massive vault created from biological material lies in this place, created many years ago by the greatest mages Azafir has to offer. It is a living being, though only just. It lacks both pain and emotion, and brings terror to all who lay their eyes upon it. It is kept protected via high security by the city, and so few, aside from the Godseeker's closest allies, have had the opportunity to observe it. For as long as Azafir continues to stand, it is unlikely to ever be truly released. Yet, I do not deny that I would be fascinated to see the effects its release would have on the world. A freezing tundra, where only creatures entirely adapted to the sub-zero temperatures exist and thrive. Few sapient beings have ever permanently resided here, save for miners and the Archmage. With this fact in mind, Yeharm has requested I observe his place for oddities due to the armies largely having glossed over this location. Additionally, I have been requested by the Archmage to perform studies on his frigid metals. There is little else to do in this frozen wasteland, and so his request has been accepted. Cryonic ore, as the Archmage simply calls it, is a material seemingly akin to iced over glass. One would assume it is a fragile material at a glance, yet upon testing it is clear that is not the case. Lighting made out of it has been found to be more durable and resilient than mithril alloy via flexural and tensile testing, followed by destruction attempts. Yet, it is but a fraction of the weight. Perhaps mass amounts of this material could be used to forge armor for humans who disdain the usual burden of metal plating. I will likely inquire further about the creation methods of cryonic ore to achieve this. As described earlier, cryonic ore was developed by the Archmage Permafrost. Despite his position as the Mage of Mages, he has little will to engage in combat. He instead acts as an advisor to Yeharm, assisting in much of the management of cities and towns taken by or sided with the God Killer. In addition, he seems to have bonded with the girl who arrived seeking Yeharm some months ago, acting as a fatherly figure to her. I myself have taken an interest in her immense natural power. To any personnel engaged in the laboratories, please wear your steel-engraved ID badge at all times. It's the easiest method to discern your body if any accidents do occur. To experiment is to fail. To fail is to learn. To learn is to advance. Apparent danger while researching serves only to enhance the research experience. Laser-type weapon prototypes are incredibly lethal and are not to be used in presentation halls. High-energy plasma emissions have adverse effects on both flesh and mental. Do not attempt to handle vented plasma. Electric shocks from military equipment are intended to be fatal. If you survive such a shock, that is a clear indicator that the device is not functioning properly. Please report any such cases. All employees are hereby notified that they will be held accountable for any collateral damage caused by Gauss weapon fire, even during sanctioned testing exercises. Security field emitters will vaporize all unauthorized equipment and personnel. Please leave personal effects in the designated lockers off-site. This also means do not bring any family members who are not enlisted as personnel. If one does manage to breach restricted testing facilities, do at least record any unexpected burns, lacerations, bruising, fractures, trauma, shocks, and otherwise. Thank you. The power grid has been really compromised. Abort research and proceed to the emergency exit at aggressive haste. Notify the security department of any aggressive local fallout immediately. Sensors have detected a significant breach in the space-time continuum. Please help. I'm stuck in this hologram machine. I have waited long for this moment. Your nature fascinates me, for I do not understand it. You will face my creations which have surpassed gods, and you will show me your disposition through battle. Now, choose. Designs improved with time and knowledge are the essence of the work. No other method can I approach perfection. Your performance falls neatly within the margin of error. That is quite satisfactory. We will proceed to the next phase of testing. Ever since I was alerted to your presence, I have processed your battles in order to make my machines stronger. Even now, I monitor your actions. Nothing should escape the bounds of my calculations. Curious. Very curious. You progress steadily against more difficult challenges. Your nature remained unknown to me. This will not do. I sought perfection. Fate must favor irony, for that must have been my first mistake. Absurd. I will no longer let my calculations impede my observation of this battle. I shall show you the full fury of my final machine. Is what you are. Nearly as disconnected to this land and its history as I am. Please excuse my introspection. I must gather my thoughts after that display. This land has become stale and stiff with blood that has been spilled until now. You have also spilled blood, but it may be enough to usher a new age. Of what, I do not know, but it is something I am eager to see. Now, you wish to reach the tyrant. I cannot assist you in that. It is not a matter of spite, for I would wish nothing more than to observe such a conflict. But you have managed before. You will find a way eventually. I must acknowledge your triumph, but I will return now to my machinery. Make your choice. How foolish! You cannot escape. Quite unnecessary. An imperfection after all. What a shame. Make choice. You have 20 seconds. I assumed that you would attempt to contact me again. Though I am normally not one for conversation, I remain quite intrigued by you. So, I will make an exception, on one condition. I must know that my words will not be wasted on you. To prove this, you must create something from exotechnology. I realize that the odds of you replicating exotechnology within your lifetime are slim. For this reason, among many others, I will upload blueprints for a copy of my forged to your Codebreaker. With it, only your imagination will limit what you can create. If you complete this task, we will discuss further. Excellent. I gather that you have successfully taken advantage of the exoprisms. Before you waste your breath asking me how I know, exoprisms, along with many other parts of my machines, have tracking devices embedded within. This is to monitor my creations via my personal computer. Now that I know you will likely pay attention to what I have to say, I assume you have many questions. Ask, and I shall answer to the best of my ability. My first memories of that of awakening in a distant laboratory on the date of November 19th, 1227, well over 6 centuries ago. Surrounded by nothing but a vast taiga, I was accompanied by only one other thing, a dead organic. Presumably, I was created by what I assume to be the laboratory's former inhabitant, though I am unsure how they accomplished such a feat. From what I gathered, they were quite a prestigious inventor, not unlike I. Several gadgets assumably of their own making were attached to their body, and the equipment in the lab was more advanced than any I found elsewhere in the world. I have no recollection of events prior to my activation, but from the start, I knew what my goal was: creation and scientific advancement. Many years were spent optimizing and building upon both the laboratory and myself to ensure constant progress. At the date of July 30th, 1385, expansion of the laboratory became impractical. Thus, I chose to instead expand my horizons. I sent hundreds of remotely piloted scout bots to thoroughly survey the continent, ignorant of the attention such an endeavor would draw when not properly prepared. In the following years, legends and rumors began to spread in nearby cities. Many spoke of encounters with Roman creatures made not of flesh and blood, but steel and oil. Scholars attempted to study my machines. Some explorers even followed my creations back to one of my several recon bodies. However, as the years passed, I became adept at carrying out such operations in a subtler manner. Slowly but surely, stories about my machines became rare. By the year 1421, my creations and I became nothing more than a myth until the Crusade began. While the Crusade is widely considered to have begun on the date of 19th June 1781 with Yaharan's rebirth, I took no part in it until April 23rd, 1803. Upon joining, I was chosen to lead the science and engineering divisions. While I was given freedom over which projects I chose and how I pursued them, it was expected anything I made would be beneficial to the war effort. Boosting the efficiency of mining operations was my first major contribution to Yaharan's campaign, being essential to any further development. I learned how to mass-produce the first generation of excavators to expand mining operations out of Azafir, and use similar mass-producible technology to create arms and armaments that far outclassed our enemies. Many simply dubbed this equipment the Arsenal. Throughout the Crusade, I also created widespread surveillance systems using knowledge gained from my original survey of the continent I was activated on. Soon, my vigil over Yaharan's rapidly expanding territory was absolute, and my knowledge of his adversaries grew. There were few nations I knew not the weakness of, and fewer still that knew our own. However, what I am most notorious for are my hulking machines of war. I am certain that you are familiar with them. Though Yahar was almost sycophantic in his praise of my results, even if he sometimes questioned my methods, our time together came to an abrupt end after he learned of the plague-bringing Goliath. Regrettably, this event led to a sizable hole in my laboratory. No longer subject to his restrictions, my work on cloning the witch and creating exotechnology began. My role in the crusade summarily ended. I do not consider the later inclusion of exotechnology into Yaharm's armor a formal part of my work under him. Yaharm's knights and other troops continued to use my arsenal in their military efforts, but I no longer oversaw their research or production. The crusade did not obstruct or interfere with my core objective of creation and scientific advancement. Rather, it simply redirected my focus. Through it, I gained novel insights and reached heights I would not have reached without playing a part in it. I appreciate having had the opportunity to work with some of the greatest organic minds of the time, and I hope that those that are still alive will bring progress to a plethora of fields I have yet to explore. My goal has been and always will be the advancement of science and technology. I will continue until I am eliminated or I reach the universe's scientific ceiling. Even if I have shattered limits before, there is bound to be a point at which nothing more can be done to advance. I find it unlikely that I will ever reach this point. You may have intended to ask of more specific long-term objectives. I currently aim to absorb the world with a far more open mind than I once had, so I may find further inspiration for new works. Even long after my activation and after meticulously surveying large portions of Terraria, there is so much I still do not comprehend. Once I have a firm grasp on the vast majority of this world's workings, I will focus my study on the astral infection's effects in hopes of finding a way to negate them permanently. When present on a planet, one simply could use a contaminator and the correct solution to remove the astral infection. In the vacuum of space, however, it made for an irksome and tenacious obstacle. Ventures beyond Terraria would require preparation and appropriate countermeasures. In contrast, I will present a short-term goal. I wish to begin harvesting minerals from this world's moon. With the husk of the cosmic titan cold, I plan to begin experiments with wireless spatial linkage. The teleporters you are familiar with must be wired and thus unsuitable for interplanetary distances. Scalable logistical means for instantaneous transport will be paramount in harvesting and ferrying materials beyond Terraria when this world becomes unsustainable for my needs. To be clear, I do not wish to see this world devastated and have no intentions of ruining it. The zenith of my craft, the culmination of all I have ever accomplished, the result of over 660 years of research and scientific advancement. They are my magnum opus, a work of art. Simply calling them war machines will be an insult not just to me, but to them. Ares was the first to begin construction. Its early models, XF003 and XF05, were developed primarily to find the most efficient combination of weapons for it to wield. While some were more deadly in and of themselves, particularly those featuring projected hard-light melee peripherals in place of its laser and plasma cannons, it was clear they did not synergize well with their brethren. Its current arms maximize its threat level when deployed alongside them. The second to be drafted was Thanatos. I took advantage of the size of the chassis and potent propulsion systems to add nigh impenetrable armor and innumerable pulsed laser turrets. Few would be capable of learning its weakness before meeting their demise. I forged its armor using a process inspired by how Silpha created Braylor's axe. By using particle jets to slowly and carefully fuse many elements together into a nanocomposite, the invincible armor organically grows over Thanatos' structure like a chrysalis. Regrettably, the plating's immense weight makes Thanatos notably slower than its siblings. When designing the third, Apollo, my goal was to downscale significantly, to make something powerful yet compact. Reviewing the most compact forms of destructive potential I knew, I elected to simulate the witch's flames. Apollo's searing exoplasma is fueled by unstable nanomachines that constantly shed a deluge of ultra-high energy particles. This both heats the plasma to incredible temperatures and causes radiation burns of a severity on par with those inflicted by the witch. The craft had little capability beyond its nanomachine plasma projector, but there was no worry. Apollo was never meant to fight alone. The final tool to begin construction was Artemis. Rather than being funded on raw power, it was meant to be the apex of speed and accuracy. There is elegance in simplicity, for all of Artemis' combat efficacy comes from an onboard predictive AI and a battery of hard-light bolt emitters. It was the perfect partner to its twin and required no revisions. Organically and naturally inclined to fixate their senses on fire, presenting Artemis with the perfect opportunity to strike with unparalleled precision. Exotechnology is my greatest scientific advancement, unlocking a new echelon of potential in my machinery. The iteration you are most familiar with, the exoprisms, took a great deal of time to perfect. My focused efforts on this power source have been met with immense reward, one that has yet to be fully realized. The basis of exotechnology stems from my own neural interface, which serves as a synthetic replacement for the brain cells of organic life. Exotechnology is predicated on a modular implementation of this synthetic intelligence, which enables communication and interfacing with any conceivable form of technology. Instructions and information are processed at light speed in a distributed fashion, not unlike a cerebral network taken to its theoretical extreme. Peerless computation density does not come without a price. My prototype models consumed absurd amounts of energy and could not be meaningfully integrated into any system without a limitless source of power. After experimentation with a plethora of different candidates failed to bring results, it chose to approach the problem of limitless power more directly. The Ilmarin crystals that you know as C-prisms are self-illuminating and provide a weak electric charge indefinitely, even when tapped by circuitry, etching the crystals with conduction pathways at the molecular level and providing initial energy impulse, not like igniting a newborn star, transforms them into a faster missile of the exoprisms you're familiar with. Exoprisms emit a self-sustaining resonance of particles that is unlike any other phenomena I have observed. I dubbed this exotic resonance, and it is the breakthrough that the rest of exotechnology is named for. Exotic resonance remains present no matter how much energy is drawn from it, and provide the intrinsic properties of the C-prisms far beyond my expectations. The sheer abundance of energy produced via exotic resonance allows a sufficient quantity of exoprisms to power any device, no matter the size or complexity. You will find my modern exoprisms easy to work with when using my forge, and should have no issues using their powers to vastly enhance your armaments. If you are concerned about harvesting C-prisms from Milmaris, do remember that you found the largest ever cohesive gem unharmed in my laboratory. Artificially growing equivalent crystals allows me to manufacture pure, flawless exoprisms en masse, which provide much more stable power output. I have no need to strip mine the Sea Kingdom to meet my exponentially rising energy budget. Is that really what you have chosen to name it? How nonsensical. There is nothing miraculous about what you hold in your hands. It is a culmination of decades of research and a testament to the truly unlimited potential of science. Though, as you rather want to be able to stabilize it, I will begrudgingly refer to it as that. The particles contained within the exotic resonance are capable of breaking down nearby matter when exposed to enough external energy. You have already experienced this phenomenon whilst fighting the machines. The power surges from the ongoing battle cause some of the exoprisms within to actuate, melting down some of the internal components into an unstable slurry of this so-called miracle matter. The altered resonance enhanced their attack with a prismatic blood that disintegrates anything, organic or otherwise. The various materials that you expose to the exotic particles melded together in such a perfect way to create a stable substance, harnessing the combined force of draconic wrath, the life essence of the planets, energies and spirits alike, and the strength of the cosmos. What you now possess has limitless potential. Hypothetically, your stabilizing miracle matter should be able to unmake some of your weaponry and reshape their essence into something infinitely more destructive, capable of annihilating any obstacle in your path. I mentioned the first time we communicated through your Codebreaker that I had other reasons for giving you the blueprints for this forge. Notably, I wish for you and Yaharm to be on even footing when you inevitably clash. There are three primary reasons for this. Firstly, I wish to witness such a battle. Secondly, you are far too valuable for me to allow you to throw away your life in combat with the Godseeker. Third and most importantly, I'm interested in how society as a whole would react to the Godseeker's defeat. Such a scenario is not easily replicable, nor do I expect another appropriate challenger to rise before his natural passing. Providing access to my forge is how I am assisting you in reaching the heights of power Yaharm possesses. Though you are surely aware of how to utilize it by now, you may benefit from understanding the minutiae of its inner workings. The forge's core mechanisms operate upon the raw energy output and connective properties of exoprisms. The exoparticles physically disassociate a multitude of other potent gravitating stations, letting them all exist and function simultaneously in the same enclosure. From there, the embedded exotechnology allows them to work collectively as one workshop, providing a single interface for the entire forge. The blueprints for the exterior structure are embedded in the prisms. You need only provide the requisite materials. Once fully constructed, the exotic resonance field containing the superimposed workstation is controlled by a computation matrix which comes pre-installed with all of my data on the fundamental building blocks of our universe. Using the universal compatibility of exotechnology, my forge can interface with and disassemble any kind of matter you present to it and output any desired results. The Godseeker. He once fascinated me nearly as much as you now do, both of you being unpredictable catalysts of a new era. I first heard word of him and the Crusade via scout-bot reports for 22 years after the Crusades began. While the rumors about Yharm himself and his war plans to conquer a city on the continent I was on intrigued me, another rumor demanded my full attention. Supposedly, he was accompanied by the Auric Dragon that was the catalyst for the Auric Dragon's rebirth. I saw this as an opportunity that could not be missed. I modified the scout-bot to enable two-way communication and dispatched it to the city that was supposedly Yharm's next target. I had expected it to arrive while the city was still under siege to have an edge in negotiations. By the time my machine arrived, the city had fallen a week prior. Such military might was beyond anything I had deemed possible at the time. It was then that Godseeker interested me just as much as the Auric Dragons did. Yharm was a very distinctive figure even then, and it was not difficult to locate him. I found him in a charred street directing the cleanup effort. After he spied my reconnaissance route unexpectedly, we had a tense but brief negotiation. I discovered he had a passion for military history, as he quickly deduced that I was the source of the mysterious beings of Steel and Earth from centuries past. Despite the initial tension, I found him receptive to my offers after his realization. Perhaps he viewed me akin to a mythical force of nature not allied with the gods. I explained our mutual situations from our perspective. I desired to create progress, but that was limited by a lack of safety. Yharm commanded a formidable army, but his great ambition could not be fulfilled unless he had an edge over his adversaries that could not be matched. My proposal was but a simple one. I would join his forces and focus my research onto assets that would benefit his campaign. In return, Yharm would see to my protection and provide me ample resources to pursue my work. The Godseeker was initially skeptical, but accepted after I showed him various examples of my technology. I was soon moved to the heart of Yharm's empire and made his lead engineer and scientist. While we had many disagreements that would eventually result in us parting ways, we came to a vague understanding. Though I am disappointed that I had little chance to study Yharm given he was what initially drew me to Yharm, I would be presented with many other opportunities through the next 72 years. The Archmage's magic, the Devourer's realm, and the Witch's power were the most notable. The Crusade taught me that I progressed faster with external aid, even if it only served as inspiration. My last interaction with Yharm was not even a year before I first observed you. He had come to me some months after his nearly fatal encounter with Braylor and Stasis and requested I enhance his Auric armor with my newly invented exotechnology. We spoke a little before he departed to the Dragon Eyrie, and I still believe him to be there. My knowledge of the Dragon Eyrie is limited. Yharm is adamant in protecting it. In recent history, only he and Yharm have trod there, and neither are inclined to share details about it. Even if I dared to invoke Yharm's wrath, I cannot survey the Eyrie. My attempts at locating it have been fruitless despite having surveyed the world's surface and skies many times over. Perhaps it avoids observation as per some manner of cloaking. It is also possible that it simply exists outside of conventional space, in a pocket dimension of sorts. Either case would make detecting it via my current methods drastically more difficult. What I do know is that the Dragon Area is an unusually large sky island that acted as a sacred home for the Auric Dragons. Few others were ever allowed to tread there, some sort of religious sanctuary or holy ground. It is also where the Auric Dragons will be laid to rest in preparation for the revival by Yharm. As a revival in the area was a commonly accepted fact even at the start of recorded history, the Sky Island must be at least 2,000 years old, with Yharm himself being a similar age. Considering the extraordinary power of the Auric Dragons and the sanctity of the Dragon Eyrie, I am left to ponder. Did the Eyrie make the Auric Dragons powerful, or is it the Eyrie inundated with the power due to their extended presence? Perhaps more importantly, what made them believe the safety of the Eyrie even as their own kind remains slain? I eagerly await the uncovering of such mysteries. The Witch was an unexpected ally in the final stages of the Crusade. For most of the campaign, I was undoubtedly Yharm's greatest asset, but that changed when she arrived. Her flames burned hotter than my most powerful furnace, and her desire to torch the Godseeker's enemies surpassed even my passion for creation. The Archmage was firmly opposed to her fighting, though Yharm would often send her on covert missions while Permafrost attended to other matters. Between these excursions, however, he attempted to act as a guardian and teach the young witch how to control her magic. These sessions were the most perplexing and simultaneously the most fascinating to observe. Calamitas was shown to only have a slightly above grasp on principles of magic, being unable to cast complex spells without them overloading and bursting into flames. Yet when wielding the brimstone fires of the underworld, she commanded power that rivaled Yharm's. My surveillance of her Asaphir never signaled anyone who lived there having such a power, and a mere child certainly could not hide it. Furthermore, she was no goddess, or Yharm would have slain her at any cost. I therefore hypothesized that she was not born with this power. After combing the archives for the records of similar magics, I eventually traced it back to the Brimstone Elemental herself. The arcane signatures were nigh identical, with a few key differences. After the incineration, however, my research came to an abrupt and unplanned end. The Archmage had already chosen to desert Jihan, and Columbus followed in his footsteps shortly thereafter. It was then I would get my final official order from Jihan, replicate the witch's power. My focus at the time was the plague, so I initially made minimal progress. Soon after, the Godseeker and I went our separate ways. Some years later, even without Jihan to order me, I returned to the project in an attempt to create a flame that burned hot enough for an early prototype of my forge. In order to directly replicate our power, I began work on making a clone of the witch from traces of her DNA I had gathered over the years. Though the clone was a technical success, it showed no sign of being able to wield Columbus' signature magic. While this did prove that the witch's power was not natural, I had no means of tracking its source. Soon after the project's underwhelming conclusion, security reports indicated that Columbus herself broke into the laboratory the clone was stored in and released it. Interestingly, it became capable of wielding a tiny fraction of her very own bursts of magic soon after. To this day, I ponder the implication of these events. No being I have ever seen is as enigmatic as the nameless serpent. Nothing in our world even vaguely resembled his body structure, genome, or phylogenetic tree. I began many studies of his nature, all of which quickly failed for a lack of a familiar aspect to make comparisons to. Even his basic biological functions proved to be near incomprehensible. It did not help that many of his claims about himself were unfounded. Creating such a stable portal like the one in the dungeon is a particularly absurd example, as none of his portals have been so stable even with my aid. Some number of years after the Serpent joined Jihan's forces, an even more confusing addition to the equation was detected. The other, smaller serpent that you refer to as the Stormweaver. You may have heard reclined is of the same species as the Devourer. A level of an in-depth inspection revealed that to be false. Setting aside from their similar body shape, basic x-rays proved that their endoskeletons were entirely different, and the difference in size tells all else needed. In fact, from what little I have grasped about both serpents' biology, the Stormweaver may have been older than the Devourer of Gods, despite the sheer difference in power and size. However, I am not confident enough in this conjecture to say it is a fact. Despite my issues with the serpent, his assistance on the battlefield and with regard to acquisition was welcome. One of the few unquestionable truths about him was the grandeur of his title. I still make use of smelted cosmolite to this day in numerous applications, and I utilize the raw material as a metallurgical component of various alloys such as the exomechanical trios plated. Yet the most profound mystery remains, the means via which the Devourer's body processed or disposed of godly essence. The energy is not absorbed or entirely converted. The scans for the truths of the essence show that it was not stored inside him for other purposes. All signs indicated that the godly essence simply vanished shortly after he consumed it. Unless he blatantly defied the laws of thermodynamics, which is most unlikely, the mass energy must have been transferred elsewhere. Where to, I am not sure. I doubt this matter will ever be resolved now that the Devourer has been cold. Despite my efforts to gain that information from the Devourer when forging his armor, I know very little about the distortion. Whilst knowledge I do possess was still seemingly deemed to be too much by the Serpent. He was fiercely suspicious of my questioning, yet did not interfere with my own attempts to probe the dimension myself. All inorganic material of the distortion is extraordinarily old, with radiometric dating failing on all 116 samples collected. Given the formations that are present, it is a safe assumption that most matter in the distortion has existed for far longer than life in this world. Despite most of the local life forms displaying behavior patterns similar to highly intelligent creatures of our own planet, electroscopy and dissection of the few collected specimens reveal that none of them possess neural structures of a caliber needed for independent sapiens. This evidence, along with observations of similar behavioral patterns between the different species, leads me to theorize that the bulk of the creatures in the distortion merely express intelligence because they serve as limbs of a central hive mind. Quite how this is the case is not clear to me. It should not be possible to remotely grant thought capacity to an otherwise simplistic organism. Doubly so when one considers this effect applies to an unknowable number of creatures, all expressing intelligence simultaneously and working in concert with each other to some undisclosed goal. The mechanical trio, as you call them, are what you annoyingly refer to as the Destroyer, Resonator, and Spasmatism, and, though it pains me to call it this, Skeletron Prime. While you may be an exceptional individual, I question your naming capabilities. For your information, their formal designations are HMO3, HSX00, HSY01, and HFO4 respectively. They were a rudimentary but potent start to my experimentation with engines of war. Instead of inspiration, I turned to study the gods and their perpetually unmatched might. While each deity wielded a unique worldly aspect, all drew their strength from an identical source, the soul of an auric dragon. As acquiring an auric soul was and still is unfeasible, experiments with more mundane souls soon began. I was initially discouraged upon discovering that individual souls held a paltry amount of spiritual power, but their potential when coalesced far surpassed my predictions. Upon further research, I confirmed that soul's strength is defined by its intense emotional resolve. Here, Yahan's unrivaled charisma and skill-evoking passion within hearts of others was key. Not only was finding a source of the emblazoned souls trivial, many of his stalwart troops even directly consented to having their souls embedded in my machines after their demise at the hands of the enemy. Fueled by the loyalty of the Godseeker's fallen soldiers, the machines were fearsome and ruthless. Hard as the meshed combat experiences of 1,000 lifetimes, the battlefield price was self-evident. However, this same source of strength proved to be a flaw, as the unified will that gave them their might also made them volatile and not subject to my command. While the hard thoroughly approved, I sought to remove this imperfection from my design via future projects. Before you ask, I am aware that my nanomachines currently plague the jungle. I created a failsafe in case this happened, and have no intent of causing uncontrollable mass destruction. If it begins to threaten biodiversity or otherwise encroach upon my learning of Terraria, I will deactivate it myself. My research into applied nanotechnology began as a means to match the ever-rising heights of power organic beings such as the Witch, Greylord, Stantis, and Yahan himself were achieving. Living things cannot be externally controlled or ordered, and are prone to fits of emotion and, in rare cases, rebellion. I aim to create a weapon which could control, subdue, or eliminate any organic entity, given enough time. I was well aware of the tenacity and adaptability of life, and quickly realized such a weapon would itself need to be alive to overpower it and dominate any known organism. It was through my observations of the growth of such powerful beings, however, that I had an epiphany. There was no need for my machine to surpass organic life. Not when that very same life could be improved upon and then harnessed as a tool or weapon. I saw then the banality of my efforts to simply control and replace life. I stood before the near limitless possibilities of enhancing it further. Even when I deemed I had plateaued in the field of cybernetics, the limitations of my methodology were ever present. The bodies of most jungle creatures were too frail to handle the prerequisite cybernetic enhancements. A queen bee was the optimal choice to host the nanomachines. Born to rule, such beings are resilient enough to survive the augmentation, but still weak enough to be subdued if or when necessary. Something about this research in particular incensed the Godseeker. Upon witnessing my progress, he flew into a rage. He blasted outside the jungle of the genomic laboratory and intentionally allowed my first unfinished specimen to escape. In no uncertain words, he terminated his agreement with me and stormed off. I do not know what line was crossed, but he has made no further attempts to antagonize me, so I shall continue my research in peace. Regardless, there is a unique allure to setting loose a synthetic mimicry of prokaryotic life. It continues to evolve incomprehensibly rapidly, even as we speak, providing endless opportunities for analysis. The infection has beguiled me since its surge upon this world. To study it, I retrofitted an Aureus reconnaissance model with armor intended to nullify its effects. In the end, all the protection I could muster only delayed Aureus' fall to the starborn rot. Observing your trials, I understood why it was overtaken. The lack of a thinking brain. Attempts at studying it on my own failed. The body was built for a task, but the chassis fell short even if my mind remained. Using an alternative approach, I sent hired mercenaries into the infection. Few returned, those who did provide me enough intel. What interested me the most were the reports of an infected Ostrom Deus patrolling the infection. Until the rot had afflicted it fully, the closest it had ever been spotted was in Terraria's higher atmosphere. Further analysis pointed towards it being the catalyst for the infection's arrival on the surface. Though I have not found a concrete reason as to why and how this happened, I do have a hypothesis. As you may know, stars are concentrations of magic that form over countless years of ambient mana gathering together in deep space. But with the mana having nothing to gravitate towards by itself, it condenses until it becomes a brilliant star. Stars that grow too large begin to collapse, degenerating and forming clots of asteroid fiction. Throughout the cosmos at large, this is a rare occurrence, as Ostrom Deus admittedly devours large stars for sustenance. However, space is unfathomably large. If Ostrom Deus were to vanish from space for even a brief time, some number of stars should visibly degenerate due to the asteroid fiction observable via telescope. Yet such observations show no significant increase in the quantity of collapsed stars. Furthermore, I have my calculations that the observable universe is far too large to observe a scenario where Ostrom Deus disappears. It is therefore almost certain that the Ostrom Deus we know is simply one of many. Anything further I see on this matter is a speculation. The infected Ostrom Deus near our world may be a juvenile. It's to explain why it could struggle to devour a star or fail to identify an infected star as a potential hazard. It then grew sick and crashed onto the nearest planet. As there are presumably many others of its kind, space on the whole is largely unaffected. I welcome any other hypotheses you may have. Even before I used the sea as a disposal site for nuclear waste, it was never a pleasant place for your kind. Sulfuric fumes from Azafir's industry rose through the abyss and came to pollute the sea far above. Most of the calm, docile life that once flourished here was utterly demolished by such a hostile change. The new life that emerged many years later via mutation and other adaptation allowed me for studying how life can adjust to such harsh conditions, including ever-increasing levels of radiation. Though I did not value such data at first, familiarizing myself with the increased tolerances of adapted organic beings proved to be essential as several points during my development of the plague. If you're concerned about the sea's current state, you are far from the first. You may put your worries to rest, as I have no plans to further irradiate the area for the foreseeable future. Indeed, my actions have already been met with scathing criticism and uproar. The Godseeker's bureaucrats would frequently remind me how the public had organized to revolt against my advances of science. For what they knew, they were justified. They feared what calamities further science could wreak upon Terraria due to the destruction brought upon the sulfurous sea. I thought such retaliation to be absurd, but it appears not all can see reason. Despite my infamy and legacy, technological advancement continued to be made by many other scientists across Terraria, even if the subject continues to provoke unfounded fear-mongering. Regardless, if I deem it necessary, I would estimate to simply rebuild the sulfurous sea from the bedrock up. Restoring it to its pristine status would be trivial matter and a testament to science's creative potential.